In 1949, the Lone Ranger brought the Wild West to life with heroic adventures, unforgettable villains, and one of the most iconic partnerships in the history. But behind those masks were real people living lives filled with triumph, loss, and massive curveballs. Some found lasting success while others faced crushing tragedies, devastating sickness, and shocking early deaths. Let's look at where they ended up and how their stories unfolded over the decades. Clayton Moore is the Lone Ranger. The masked hero whose unwavering commitment to justice made him a legendary Western icon was played by Clayton Moore. Born September 14, 1914 in Chicago, Illinois, Moore was 35 years old when he took on the role that defined his entire life. His calm authority, heroic presence, and deep belief in those values turned a simple weekly V show into a massive cultural phenomenon that inspired generations. Clayton Moore passed away on December 28, 1999 at age 85 after a sudden heart attack at his home in Calabasas, California. He was rushed to a hospital in West Hills, but doctors could not save him. Before he died, he earned a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and was honored by the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum for his work in Westerns. His estimated net worth was around $1 million, but his real legacy was the millions of fans who forever saw him as one of America's greatest heroes. Behind that famous mask, Moore endured years of painful hardship and legal battles that deeply scarred his later years. In the late 1970s, franchise owners tried to ban him from wearing the iconic mask at public events. The lawsuit crushed him because he did not see the character as just some acting gig, but as a lifelong mission of honesty, courage, and integrity. After years of fighting to get his identity back, he finally won the right to wear the mask again, bringing him massive peace before his death. That victory showed the deep determination that defined his life, ensuring that Clayton Moore would be remembered as a real-life hero, not just an actor. Chuck Courtney as Dan Reed, the brave Texas Ranger whose tragic fate shaped the hero's origin story, was played by Chuck Courtney. Born on July 23, 1929 in New York, Courtney was just 20 years old when he landed his role. Athletic and totally fearless, he moved from acting into hardcore stunt work, known for taking on incredibly dangerous action scenes. Chuck Courtney passed away on January 20, 2000, at age 69 in North Hollywood, California. His career spanned different genres and generations, keeping him as a familiar face in Hollywood long after his time on the show was over. He worked on tons of projects, from Billy the Kid vs. Dracula to dangerous stunts in Pet Sematary. But the final chapter of Courtney's life was much harder than any stunt he ever performed. He battled severe depression while dealing with the constant, crushing pain from years of brutal stunt work. The mix of loneliness, failing health, and constant mental anguish sloshed him into a dark place he just could not escape. His tragic death remains one of the absolute saddest chapters, a stark reminder of the hidden pain that exists behind a Hollywood career. Jay Silverheels as Tonto. Tonto, the loyal companion whose bravery, wisdom, and friendship made him essential to the show, was played by Jay Silverheels, born on May 26, 1912, on the Six Nations Reserve in Ontario, Canada. Silverheels was 37 years old when he took on the role that made him famous worldwide. His powerful, dignified performance turned Tonto into one of the most recognizable Native American characters on, cementing the show's place in pop culture history. Jay Silverheels passed away on March 5, 1980 at age 67 in Calabasas, California. He became the very first Native American actor to get a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He was later honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award from First Americans in the Arts for his massive impact on the entertainment industry. When he died, his net worth was estimated at around $500,000, but his true impact went way beyond money by shattering tough barriers for Indigenous actors in Hollywood. The final years for Silverheels brought some brutal physical and emotional struggles. In 1976, a major stroke completely devastated his health, ruining his mobility and forcing him into a tough fight with fading strength. But he didn't. He poured his remaining energy in helping other Native American actors by launching and funding the Indian Actors Workshop. They worked to smash stereotypes and build better opportunities for Indigenous actors who had been marginalized by Hollywood. Facing major health crises, Silverheels kept fighting for a cause much bigger than himself, leaving a legacy of grit and dignity that matters just as much as his iconic role as Tonto. Lane Bradford played Duke Wade. Duke was a vicious outlaw who constantly terrorized the frontier and clashed with the law, all brought to life by Lane Bradford. Born on August 29, 1922 in Yonkers, New York, Bradford was in his late 20s when he first appeared in The Lone Ranger. He played several different parts during the run of the show, but Duke Wade was definitely his most memorable. Lane Bradford died on June 6, 1973, at just 50 years old in Honolulu, Hawaii. Over the years, he earned a reputation as one of the most dependable character actors in Hollywood, working in dozens of westerns and action films. His rugged features and powerful screen presence later made him a very familiar face in big hits like Ben-Hur and Bonanza. The life of Bradford was cut tragically short while he was still quite young. In early June 1973, while out on a boat off Hawaii, he unexpectedly suffered a cerebral hemorrhage and collapsed on deck. Rushed to Kaiser Memorial Hospital in Honolulu, he never woke up, remained in a deep coma for 4 days before he died. His passing at only 50 years old left friends, coworkers, and fans totally shocked by his sudden death. Denver Pyle played both Vance Kiley and Arlie Mequeen. Those two memorable characters who popped up during the long run of The Lone Ranger were brought to life by veteran actor Denver Pyle. Born on May 11, 1920 in Bethune, Colorado. Pa was in his late 20s during his first appearance, starting to become a highly recognizable television career. His rugged looks and natural charm made him a staple in dozens of westerns and family dramas for several decades. Denver Pa died on December 25, 1997. At age 77 at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, California. Over a brilliant career, fans loved him in projects like The Andy Griffith Show, Bonnie and Clyde, and of course The Dukes of Hazzard, where he played the wise Uncle Jess. His massive television career eventually earned him a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, securing his spot as one of the most reliable character actors in the industry. But behind the scenes, the final years for Pyle were spent fighting a brutal battle with advanced lung cancer.
The terrible disease meant painful treatments, major physical decline, and breathing issues that left him extremely weak. Yet he fought on. He stayed completely devoted to the acting craft that defined his life, showing the same fire audiences loved in his classic shows. In a truly inspiring move, he dragged himself to his own Walk of Fame ceremony despite being terribly sick. Just weeks later, he died, leaving a legacy of grit, professionalism, and warmth that still touches fans of classic television today. Glenn Strange played Butch Cavendish, and the stagecoach driver, Butch Cavendish, one of the deadliest outlaws the Lone Ranger ever faced, along with that mysterious stagecoach driver, were both played by Glenn Strange. Born August 16, 1899, in Weed, New Mexico, Strange was 50 when he played on the Lone Ranger. Standing 6'5" with a rugged face, he became one of Hollywood's go-to Western tough guys. Glenn Strange passed away September 20th, 1973, at age 74 in Los Angeles, California. With hundreds of film and TV credits to his name, he was easily one of the most reliable faces in Western history. His crazy versatility let him dominate both Western gunfights and classic horror movies. But despite all the Hollywood fame, Strange spent his final years fighting a brutal, painful battle with lung cancer. The disease tore through his lungs quickly, leaving him utterly exhausted from non-stop coughing fits, carving, and constant pain. For the man who brought life to Gunsmoke and House of Frankenstein, watching him fade was heartbreaking. His death left a massive hole for his friends and co-stars, and his close buddy, singer Eddie Dean, sang one last tribute at his funeral. John Hart played the Lone Ranger. The legendary masked hero briefly got a brand new face during the show's second season, and that fresh look belonged to John Hart. Born December 13, 1917, in Los Angeles, California, Hart was 34 when he took over the role, replacing Clayton Moore for 54 episodes. Sure, fans compared him to the old Ranger, but Hart brought a sharp, high-energy confidence to the classic character, keeping one of TV's biggest Western hits alive during a make-or-break moment. John Hart died September 20th, 2009, at 91, in his hometown in Playas de Rosarito, Mexico. Famous for his roles in The Lone Ranger and the hit show Hockey and The Last of the Mohicans, he had a massive run spanning the golden age of movies and television. While he never quite hit the A-list heights of some of his peers, Hart was still a total legend to Western buffs and collectors for his entire life. But his final years got dark, overshadowed by a brutal battle with dementia that slowly robbed him of his memories and his independence. As things got worse, his wife of over 50 years, Beryl Braham Hart, stepped up to care for him, bearing the heavy weight of watching her husband slowly slip away. For the star who once ruled the screen in Hockey and The Last of the Mohicans, it was a tragic end. Yet Western fans everywhere still celebrate his classic legacy to this day. House Peters Jr. played Bat Masterson, the classic recurring outlaw who constantly found himself on the wrong side of the Lone Ranger's pursuit of justice. He was born January 12, 1916, in Los Angeles, California. He was in his early 30s when he joined the show, though he played a few roles. His turn as Bart Anders is definitely his most famous. House Peters Jr. passed away on October 1st, 2008, at 92. While at the Motion Picture and Television Fund Hospital in Los Angeles. After leaving show business, he lived a pretty quiet life in local commerce, staying far out of the limelight. For his legendary work in westerns, they honored him with the Golden Boot Award in 2000. That tough, rugged look also landed him parts in classic adventure serials like Flash Gordon and King of the Rocket Men. Old age eventually weakened his immune system, leaving him open to serious illness. At the end, he caught a severe case of pneumonia, which crushed his breathing and put him into a coma. For the star who thrilled fans on The Lone Ranger and King of the Rocket Men, his passing was quiet and dignified. His death closed the book on a career that literally defined the early adventure serials and classic westerns. Mickey Simpson played Lefty. The massive outlaw was an incredibly intimidating threat on screen. making him one of the show's most memorable bad guys. Born April 3, 1913 in Rochester, New York, Simpson was in his mid-30s when he joined the classic Western. Standing well over 6 feet tall with a naturally rugged look, he became one of Hollywood's favorite character actors for playing villains. Mickey Simpson passed away on September 23, 1985 at the age of 71 in Northridge, California. Over a 40-year career, he was in dozens of westerns and adventure movies and TV shows. His massive screen presence also landed him roles in classics like The Searchers and Giant. Sadly, the final years of Simpson's life were clouded by serious heart problems. Years of high blood pressure, hidden health issues, and the physical strain on his massive frame slowly wore down his heart and cut back his daily activities. After years of taking it easy and watching his health, he finally passed away from heart failure, closing the chapter on one of Hollywood's most memorable Western bad guys. Richard Crane starred as Sheriff. He played the respected frontier lawman who protected his town from outlaws, cattle thieves, and land grabbers. Born on June 6, 1918 in Newcastle, Indiana, Crane was only in his early 30s when he did the Lone Ranger. His confident look and trustworthy vibe made him a perfect match for playing heroic authority figures. Richard Crane passed away on March 9, 1969 at just 51 in California's San Fernando Valley. Over the years, he built a solid TV career, especially as the star of Rocky Jones, Space Ranger, pioneering sci-fi show. But his life was cut tragically short right when his career should have been hitting its prime. In the late 1960s, arterial disease quietly weakened his body while he kept right on working. Friends later remembered how dedicated he was and how proud he felt working on hit shows like Perry Mason and Sea Hunt. His sudden death at only 51 shocked his co-stars and fans, leaving everyone with the feeling that his story ended way too soon. John Doucette played Andrew Gage. Gage was a tough rancher trapped in a dangerous feud, eventually needing the Lone Ranger to step in and restore justice. Born on January 21, 1921 in Massachusetts, Doucette was in his late 20s during his Lone Ranger gig. With his booming voice and rugged build, he became one of the industry's go-to character actors. John Doucette passed away on August 16, 1994. At 73, at his home in Banning, California. Over a career lasting more than 40 years, he popped up in hundreds of movies and TV episodes, including True Grit and Patton. Even with all his success, Doucette spent his final years quietly fighting cancer far away from the spotlight. As things got worse, he chose to keep to himself, dealing with the sickness on his own terms, rather than talking to the press. Audiences still loved seeing him in classics like High Noon and The Sons of Katie Elder, while he struggled through a quiet physical decline at home. When he died in 1994, he went exactly how he wanted, peacefully with his family. Harry Lauder played Luke Potter. Luke Potter was a settler whose personal troubles put him right in the middle of a Lone Ranger investigation, played by Harry Lauder. Born on June 19, 1914 in White Plains, New York, Lauder was in his mid-30s when he did the show. His athletic build and steady screen presence made him a familiar face in tons of 50s and 60s westerns and crime dramas. Harry Lauder passed away on January 30, 1990, at 76 years old in Ojai, California. Retiring from acting, he spent his time painting and running an art gallery. Chasing a quieter, more personal creative path, fans also knew him from Tales of the Texas Rangers and Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Lauder's later years were taken over by serious heart disease. As he aged, chronic breathing issues, poor circulation, and constant hospital stays became a normal part of his routine, while audiences kept discovering his work on shows like Death Valley Days and Gunsmoke. Lauder spent most of his last decade dealing with a failing heart. After a lengthy struggle, death took the life of a hard-working actor whose quiet career spanned some of television's most beloved classic westerns. Harry Harvey played Mayor, a respected leader responsible for keeping order and guiding his frontier town through times of intense conflict. Born on January 10, 1901, in Indianapolis, Harvey was in his late 40s during his time on The Lone Ranger. With his warm vibe and authoritative presence, he often played mayors, judges, and other trusted authority figures throughout his long career. Harry Harvey passed away on November 10, 1985, at 84 years old in Sylmar, California. Over a career spanning several decades, he logged hundreds of appearances in movies and television shows, cementing his place as a highly recognizable character actor. Audiences knew him incredibly well from The Roy Rogers Show and other classic westerns, but as he hit his 80s, failing organs, poor circulation, and other complications from old age steadily wore his body down. Even as younger viewers discovered him in shows like Rin Tin Tin and The Gene Autry Show, Harvey spent his final months in and out of hospitals, fighting a losing battle against physical frailty. He finally died of natural causes in 1985, ending a fantastic career that bridged the gap between early Hollywood westerns and the golden age of television. John Kaysen played Haka, a crafty outlaw who relied on lies and threats to dodge the law while stirring up trouble out west. Born on July 13, 1918, in Bluff, Utah, Kaysen was only in his early 30s during The Lone Ranger. With his tough, rugged looks and natural cowboy style, he became a go-to supporting actor in various westerns, quickly turning into a highly familiar face to moviegoers. John Kaysen died on July 7, 1961, at just 42 years old in Santa Barbara, California. When he died, he was still working constantly, building a really strong reputation in television and film. He also landed roles in Daredevil Rides Again and The Texas Rangers, which really cemented his status as a dependable actor during the golden era of TV westerns. Sadly, Kaysen's story ended in an instant without any warning. In July 1961, a brutal car crash took his life just as his career was taking off. Many of his peers felt his best years were still ahead of him, especially after great runs on The Gene Autry Show and Kit Carson. The sudden loss deeply shocked his family and co-stars alike, leaving everyone with the painful feeling that a bright future was cut way too short. Walter Sand played Sheriff Taylor. He played the seasoned lawman who protected his town from outlaws and kept the peace on the wild frontier. Born on July 9, 1906, in St. Paul, Minnesota, Sander was in his 40s on The Lone Ranger. His deep voice, heavy build, and natural presence made him the ultimate choice to play sheriffs and military leaders throughout his lifetime. Walter Sander passed away on November 22, 1971, at 65 years old in Chicago, Illinois. Over a career lasting several decades, he became one of the industry's most trusted character actors, racking up credits in endless films and television shows. Fans also loved him in major films like To Have and Have Not and the sci-fi hit The War of the Worlds. But the heavy demands of constant work kept following Sander even as his health started slipping away. Toward the very end, he dealt with severe heart issues while keeping up a grueling travel and filming schedule. Co-stars constantly praised his deep dedication, which clearly showed in late career roles on hit shows like Perry Mason and Raw Wide. During a work trip to Chicago in November 1971, a massive heart attack suddenly took his life. His sudden death deeply saddened all the friends and fellow actors who knew him as a dedicated professional right up to the very end. So, even after nearly 80 years, the Lone Ranger cast lives on through the unforgettable characters and stories they left behind. Whose story shocked you the most? And who was your absolute favorite character from the show? Let us know in the comments below if you loved looking back at the Lone Ranger 1949. They're cast in 2026. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and ring that bell for more classic TV reunions and vintage Hollywood stories. Thanks for the memories.